a lot of people who come to MGE, I see this a lot, believe in God, but not necessarily that God wrote the Torah. Um, what do you say to people? I know you give talks about this. I know this is a concern for you. What is your best argument? If you can sort of share it on one foot, if you don't mind.
Sure. Um, as it turns out, well over more than 1 out of 2 people who share our planet, more than half the world's population, although many of them are not crazy about us, believe that our Torah is the Word of God. Muslims do not believe the New Testament is the Word of God. They don't even like it. And Christians do not like the Quran. They just don't. For whatever reason, it's not important. But the one thing they can agree on, regardless of what they think about Jews, is that Torah is divinely inspired, and their religions are all predicated on the Torah of Moses. Moses in Islam is considered the highest Rasul, only second to Muhammad. I mean, Moses is way up there, and his revelation is the highest. And Christians believe the same thing. And the question is why? And this is what I would say to any Jew who's wondering about his faith. Why is it that the nations of the world are so awestruck by the Torah? And what is so unique about it? And as it turns out, the Torah predicts this. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, the Torah says, look, this is what's going to happen. All the nations are going to say, what a wise nation this is, speaking about the Jewish people, the children of Israel, that has such a wise law. So the Torah, written in the Bronze Age, predicts that the world will be enraptured with the Jewish people and the Torah of the Jew, of the law of the Jew. However, the same chapter says, be aware that despite this, they're going to exile you, and you'll be in all nations, remaining few in number. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 27. What is going on here? So the author of the text is saying something very complicated, saying they're going to love your Torah, but you're going to be a problem, they're going to exile you. Why is this Torah so attractive? What is so unique about the Jewish claim that the whole world latches onto it? And that is the type of revelation. The revelation is one of a national revelation. It's completely unique. That is our formidable event. We believe in Abraham and his encounter with 3 angels in Genesis 18 based on faith. We have no evidence for that. The foundation of our faith is the event that occurred at Mount Sinai a little more than 3,300 years ago, when an unprecedented revelation took place where the entire nation, every Jew was present and heard the voice of God. Moreover, I submit this to you. We're now between holidays. Every Jewish holiday is based on an event that affected the entire nation. Passover, celebrating an Exodus, miracles that occurred on a national scale. We all experienced it. Passing through the Red Sea, on dry land, receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai, which we are going to celebrate in just a few weeks from now. The Festival of Tabernacles, a national event where God preserved our people for 40 years in a wilderness. All Hanukkah, all of our holidays are not like
very public. And what would you say?
The whole nation was there.
What would you say then? Which obviously is in contradistinction to the Christian view of, right?
Easter, like who was there? Like two ladies? I mean, right. Every other one is different. There's one exception, Rabbi. I just want to share this one thing with you. There's only one other type of holiday that that celebrates national events, and that's secular American holidays. When you celebrate July 4th, the reason why Americans celebrate is because of a national event that occurred to the people of the United States of America. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. But all the other religious holidays, no matter which one, celebrate some event that you take their word for it or don't take their word for it, but it's never a national revelation.
And thank you. And what do you then say to someone who's listening to this and says, okay, that's great if I was one of those people who lived thousands of years ago and I was part of witnessing that great event, the Exodus from Egypt, the giving of the Torah at Sinai. It wasn't just to a few disciples, it was to everyone, but I wasn't there. And you're asking me to just simply believe that this event took place. What's the response to that? What's the next step then?
Right. So think this through very carefully. There's a lot at stake here. What are the origins of the Torah? is it divine or human? Someone wrote it.
Right.
Either God is behind it, or just a bunch of men who lived 3,000 during the Bronze Age are behind it. The consequences are staggering, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if it's God did it, then I should do it. If men just thought pork was a bad idea, well, that was good then, but bacon, that doesn't apply to bacon today. So, like, is God behind this? That's the... So here, now listen and think very carefully. If men invented this, wrote this book, and they made it up, they made up the stories, they then present, at some point someone wrote it, somebody wrote it thousands of years ago, and then it's given to a people and told, here is your history, right? What would the people then ask if it never happened? There was no Egypt, no Joshua, no Moses. They would go, what? Like, how come no one told us about this? That means the book is not making a claim that some prophet met an angel in some remote area. This happened to you, to your forefathers. So the people would have to respond, if this was invented, if this is a human document, then how come no one told me? And then what would you do? You'd have to say it was some big secret. No one was supposed to tell anybody, right? You'd have to say something. You'd have to explain, like, if it never happened, like, how did... If it happened, why didn't anyone tell me about this? But as it turns out, the author of the book...
Because that's the story. In other words, the story we've been telling...
It's a story of your history.
The story of our history is
not,
that these Jews were gathered around a mountain. They had been slaves.
This is right.
So let's say it was written by a human being. That human being would then have to somehow convince a nation that they were these descendants of these people that were enslaved or stood at Sinai. But that big of an event, I mean, this is what you're arguing. I just want to clarify it. That big of an event had to have been heard by somebody, right? It can't just be made up and then, right.
In 100 years from now, I mean, if 9/11 never happened 100 years from now, if someone just made it up, you'll go, well, 9/11, such a cataclysmic event? Like, why didn't anybody say anything about this? It's not one individual. You take his word for it and not take his word for it. Exactly. So the text would have to, buried into the text, would have to have a method, a device, a plot device to explain this away. Because this would be the book is saying this is your history. And as it turns out, so the book would have to say your parents don't know about it because there's some secret. But it's the very reverse. And this is why it's so compelling about Torah. It's not just Jews have discovered that the world has. And that is, the text says the following. The author of the book says, look, you have questions. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. Sha'al avicha v'yagedcha zikenecha v'yomerlach. Deuteronomy chapter 32. If you have questions, ask your daddy. He knows all about it. Ask your elders. They'll recite it to you. And I want you to do the following. Every year I want you to gather together and v'higad levincha b'yemahu, and you should tell your children, and your children will ask and you will tell them. The author of the book had no such concern. It's just the opposite. The author of the book says, if you want to know more about this event that happened to you, not to Eskimos, but to you, this is your history, go to your grandparents, they know all about it. Therefore, the book actually locks that in. So therefore, only the origins must have been divine. It must have actually occurred to our people. Moreover, Deuteronomy chapter 32 says, Deuteronomy chapter 4 says that this is a one-time event in history. No other nation.
Of the Torah is a one event.
Was one time. Ata haresh ladas. You have been shown this, haresh ladas, that you may know, not have faith. Why? That I am God. And ask, has there ever been, the text asks the question, Sha'alna l'yamim rishonim. The Torah, the author of the book, is speaking to you and is saying, think back through all time in history. Has there ever been any other nation that has had a national revelation and survived, that has been delivered on a national scale and is here to talk about it? The answer is no. Atah Soldas is the response to that. It never happened. My friends, the Torah is so delicious. It's mamish mili mali, it's words that are so high, so delicious. And the text, God understands you. He loves you. You're created in His image. So the Torah is pregnant with information so that you can know the origins are divine, not human. Because the text is saying, go to your people. They know all about it. And that's why this is what's so delicious about the relationship between God and the Jews. We're really married. The Jewish people are a witness people who bear testimony to the Torah. Conversely, the Torah bears testimony to the uniqueness of Klal Yisrael as being to the nation of Israel as being a light to the nation. And that's why Isaiah tells us, Atem Eidai Nom Hashem, Avdi Shebacharti, you are my witnesses, declares the Lord, my servant whom I have declared. So God calls to the Jewish people to be His witnesses, to bear testimony. Testimony to what? If it never happened. And conversely, the text, so that's why the text stands as a testimony to the people, and the people, the Jewish people, bear witness to the authenticity of the text. It's a beautiful marriage made in heaven.